What's going on, guys? It's Learn Something New Today. It's the podcast where we intersect education and entertainment. I'm your host, Antonio Modesto Milian. And today we have a special person. He's a comedian, he's an activist, he's a social media influencer, he's a content creator, he's Dominican.
That's number one on the list.
Dominican. So, of course, Dominican, he got a million different jobs. Anyway. Let's give a shout out to Che Guerrero, uh,
Oh,
also known as my undocumented ass on TikTok. What's going on, man?
oh man, that was a beautiful intro. Thank you so much. I love that you mentioned my heritage because I'm like so few times do I get that and from DR, one of their own. I'm like, oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm good, man. Doing
Of course,
great.
of course.
Life, you know how it is in the US, a roller coaster, but you gotta try and ride it.
It is. It is a roller coaster. I mean, bro, capitalism will keep you on your toes. Like one thing last year, I went on a trip to Puerto Rico, and my family's from El Barrio. Like outside of the Bronx, they're like Jibaro. And so going there and seeing how relaxed they were and like they didn't have a care in the world, like, oh, I could eat today, I'm good. You know what I mean? It's like, but here in America, it seems like we want so much. Like
Yeah.
we see people with things and we're like, we gotta have it. So
My
the culture is completely different.
Yeah, my partner, she has a corporate job
Mhm.
and she is just constantly anxious, like vibrating almost because of her job. And she says that when she goes to DR, she like sleeps for like days on end because she just feels so comfortable because she has family down there. It's not like she's going for a resort. She goes to be with family and reconnect. And yeah, it cleanses her.
It is. It's like, I mean, I felt like weight lifted from my body. Like when I was leaving, I could feel all the tension coming back. So I'm like, oh God, I got to get back onto this shit. I got to get back all this shit in life, the bills and everything like that. But anyway, with that being said, thank you for coming on the show, man. So let's start out. You talk very openly about your immigration status on social media. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that for the people who don't know?
Yeah, so one of the things that I try to do with my page is educate people on just like the immigration experience. I specifically focus on the undocumented experience because that was for the longest time like my experience. And I also want to show people through, my stories and my work and everything that the immigration system is like filled with booby traps and things that can get you because I've fallen in and out of status multiple times. I've had work permits, I've had socials, I've gone through the whole gambit of it. And then when I got married, I was able to get status that way. And then when I was close to the finish line, the US government found out that I had done stuff when I was younger. Nothing criminal, nothing bad. Just, paperwork, kid stuff without papers, trying to work. I was doing things, just trying to survive as a kid. I've been on my own since I was 18. So I didn't understand, the consequences of my actions at so young. So now I'm in a situation where I don't know what's going to happen to me. I'm in this limbo state. I cannot become a citizen. I know that. But there are a lot of lawyers I talk to say I shouldn't have the status I have. So that's where, like, when I started this TikTok, it was about telling people like how crazy the immigration system is. And I started doing jokes about like my undocumented ass couldn't go to college. Cause you know how people go like my dumb ass couldn't work the remote. So I was like my undocumented and people are like, I love that name. So I started using that name. And I also like currently have family members who have been 30 years very close, not just like friends. Like I'm talking about like I don't want to give away who they are, but like
Of
people
course.
who mean the world to me, who are currently undocumented, who are, who we don't know what happened. So I'm very much still in this world. And my situation is so complicated that different lawyers is different things and it's all over the place.
Right, right. We hear a lot about these stories of undocumented people or people that are living in limbo. And I feel like a lot of times we hear it from a perspective where somebody's coming from Central America and they have this story where they're like going through the desert. What was your journey like coming here to the United States? Like, when you came, how old were you, and like what was it like? What was your impression when you first came to this country?
You know, I don't know how much I've talked to parents who've had to, oh, I've talked to kids on my podcast and, different people who've had to come through that route, that very difficult route of, you know, coming through Central America and going to the border and crossing over. I've had family members who have done that. My situation was my mother brought me and my sister to the US to try and escape my father's abuse. So that situation for us, like me and my sister, maybe my sister knew more, but I know for myself, I didn't know exactly what was going on. And because I guess maybe, like I was saying, like with those kids who have to walk, maybe, the parents, I've heard different things where parents give them a prep, like, hey, in a few days, this is happening, this is what we're gonna do. I didn't get that talk because my mom was planning to overstay our visa because she wasn't getting the kind of justice and help that she needed in DR, and she was afraid for her life and our safety. So when we came here, I thought at first that this was just like a temporary thing. I didn't know how long it was gonna last. I thought maybe it was just like a marriage. I was 6. So, I thought it was like a marriage dispute and we're just staying with mom for a little bit. And it wasn't really until, we overstayed our visa and I saw us having to go through multiple hearings, my mom trying to get married and everything, that I realized, oh, this is something more. But still, as a kid, I didn't fully grasp the the consequences of what we were doing until it was time for me to go to college and get a driver's license. Because once you start to become a young adult, that's more of the time you realize, oh, I can't hit the benchmarks that other people can. But for me, I had, I guess, more of a loving story with the US than most kids had because I came here on a plane. I was here in 4 hours. We lived in a household where we pooled our resources. So I actually am part of seeing just how not mediocre, but like meteoric, like a meteor kind of thing,
Right,
like
right.
success to be like. I saw my aunt, like, we used to live in a shed in DR, and I have an aunt who went from that to renting an apartment to buying her first home in New York City and to starting a real estate company to owning a bank now. It's like I've gone through every step of like, going up, but it's still like it's also given me the opportunity to see different levels of society, and how, people can be undocumented. It's also just like luck, it's also just luck. Who can get status, who can't. So it's, yeah, that's been my whole experience is getting here.
Now, in spite of the amount of challenges, you have a level of success for yourself. You have over 100,000 followers on TikTok, I believe. You've been on BET.
Mhm.
Um, you were at one point, you were on tour, a comedy tour, doing your thing. When people look at that, and people will say like, well, this person's, he's running into challenges, but he's making the best of it. What were some of your challenges throughout not only the content creation space, but like when you're trying to hit these benchmarks and you can, like, where what are some of the challenges that you have mentally, when it comes to that?
I like when I first started, I guess, in any kind of entertainment world, I started as a stand-up comedian when I was 18. It was actually the reason why I couldn't go to college, I couldn't get a job. So I started doing stand-up comedy in New York as a way to make money. So but I knew I was undocumented, so they pay me cash, so I do a lot of like, hey, you can do this for $50, you do this for $100. Sure, sure. That way I could get some money in my pocket. But in the beginning, it was very heartbreaking because I couldn't go for opportunities like other comics could. Like it just shut down due to a lot of bad reasons, but there used to be a festival called the Montreal Comedy Festival, you know? And it used to be like the Super Bowl of comedy where there'd be auditions all over New York City and you go and you showcase, and if they like you, they bring you to Canada, Montreal, and you can get seen by Netflix and HBO and all these big companies before they merged, and now it's just, Warner Brother Netflix Hulu show. But and I for like years, for like the first 10 years, I couldn't audition for that. Like that's the thing that makes your career. Like people will be like, yo, dude, you're so funny. Why don't you ask so and so for an audition? Or I'm like, nah, you know what I mean? If they really want me. But there's this sort of legwork that you have to do to get these things. And these were the kind of stuff in the beginning where I wasn't able to go for, or like I'd be at Viacom, like using my fake papers, hoping I get on an MTV show just so I could start getting that money. So like, you know what I mean? Because like I auditioned for like MTV's Guy Code, which was like this huge show at the time, and I was like, oh my God, if I get Guy Code, like they pay me $100,000 a season, I can get a lawyer, I could figure, you know what I mean? Like I was like praying, but there was things that I just couldn't go after because of my status. And then, finally when I was able, to obtain a status and go for these things, um, I started being more political, and those were sort of the backlash that I started to feel because, I feel like I'm gonna talk about this till my face is blue, but like till I'm blue in the face, but nobody really talks about I mean, we talk about, white supremacy is everywhere. It's prevalent everywhere.
Mhm.
But in the comedy world, especially comedy clubs, I'm not just talking about like TikTok, I'm talking about comedy clubs. Most of them are owned by white men, when most of them are Trump supporters. So they very much dictate who gets to perform on Friday, Saturday nights. So, black being blackballed is a very big thing. So I saw a lot of, and then, when I finally tried to become a citizen, then the government like, basically taking me back 10 steps. So every step of the way, it feels like as a trap. So that's why I'm always trying to live my life like to the best that I can, because one of the things about being undocumented is that they want you to stay quiet. They want you not to say what they're doing to you or how they're doing it to you, you know what I mean? And they
Right.
want you to, stay like that. But one thing that I love is the people who've given me encouragement, who tell me to keep going, who share their stories with me, because at a time that was very dark when I first started to like be open about this and everything I'm going through. I lost my career in comedy. They weren't having me. My family, being undocumented, was very afraid of what my exposure could do to them.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
yeah. No, I mean, now my mom has a TikTok. She's like, I love Mijo, and I have a TikTok too. You know what I mean? Because she saw it, but it was one of the things where she had to like, she saw my bravery and she saw me go out there every day and be true to myself, and it inspired her too. So it's been a lot of heartbreak, but just in the last 8 to 9 months has been this, I would say a year. It's been this newfound, oh, I found a community. I have found people who understand what I do. I'm talking to my family again. My comedy career slowly is starting to rebuild. So you lose a lot, but when you start speaking your truth.
Yeah. Do you find that a lot of people within the comedy scene, especially where you are in, the Northeast area, do you find that they empathize with you? Because I interviewed a Dominican comedian. I don't know, I don't think she's undocumented, but um there's a lot of Dominican, Puerto Rican, there's a lot of Latin community comedians in your area. Do you find that they empathize with what you're going through, and have any of them tried to help or guide you in navigating the system, or not necessarily the system, but the comedy world as an undocumented person?
You know, times are changing so much that when I first started, look, there's always been, and I hate to use this word, urban rooms. That's
Right.
because, what I always hated about comedy is that the two worlds of comedy are mainstream and urban rooms. And essentially is white and everything else, and, you know, I'm embarrassed to say that when I started my career, I wanted to appease the white man, and I wanted to, you know, seek that career path. I was friends with a lot of racist comics who have gone on to have amazing careers right now. And you wouldn't believe, if I went down the list, we'd have to run a credit. You're like, oh my God, you have pictures with all these people. I'm like, yeah, it is bad. So I ignored for a long time. I was that kind of person that ignored my own community and didn't try to write jokes for them. But once I started really like going through my transformation of being open and everything, I've started to find, and especially one, like that was part of it, like a lot more white rooms were available than urban rooms. But now things have changed so much. There's comedy in Spanish is blowing up in the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Venezuela. Like it is a phenomenon. And it's not like I don't know if you have watched like old TV shows in Spanish like I did with jokes like Bienvenido, which
Hmm.
it was like it was street jokes.
Yeah,
But now it's not that vaudevillian anymore. Now it's stand-up comedy.
right,
And Latinos are not just Latinos, all kinds, all people are a lot more. We're gonna build our own rooms. We're gonna build our own, even if it's in a coffee shop. So I love the last maybe since the pandemic, it has been really weird shift in comedy where there are more Spanish rooms. There are more rooms for people of color. Like I'm not getting booked. I'm getting booked at like, you know, urban shows, but the audience is a lot more mixed and even the stand-up comics are more mixed. And it's just like I love the fact that I think we are starting to step away from needing the white man's approval, and it's becoming a lot better now. Now I'm starting to get a lot more like, hey, would you like to do this festival in Texas specifically for Latino? And they would love to hear your story because my story was so hated by the white community. And
hmm
then when I finally was like, look, not running back to my community with tails between my legs, but being like, I'm sorry. I started off at 18. I didn't know who I was talking to, but I'm gonna try and share my story with you and please let me do my best. And then I realized, oh, they see me as their cousin and their friend and they understand me. And when I say, oh, I grew up undocumented, almost everybody in the audience goes, I know, or I've been with someone, or you know what I mean? Like, so the
right.
connection is just so much quicker. So the jokes that I can write now come from a much deeper place.
Do you find that, as you described it, the white community wasn't receptive of your story because there was an aspect of guilt there, knowing that potentially their voting patterns or the way they think about undocumented people is what's causing the a lot of the sentiment that you're having, or do they see like your struggle as being their fault?
You want to know something? I felt almost like me making fun of everything that their system put them through was like, are you saying we're not doing enough to you because you still giggling and chucking and jiving?
Oh my God, really?
Yes, I am sorry to say it felt like that. It felt like, whoa, look at you laughing about the fact that, we didn't give you a driver's license. Look at you talking about the fact that you used fake papers to have to do this and that. How fucking dare you tell us that everything we put you through, you still lived a good life?
Damn.
It is almost a hatred for seeing me do so well.
It's like we're not doing enough.
Yeah.
Whew, wow, that's a whole different subject that we could go down.
That's why I cannot do white audiences. I feel personally, physically, psychologically attacked when I go up there with their gaze on me.
Wow.
And it's not, and when I could do a speech, when I do a speech, that's different. But when I do stand up, and the point is like, hey, these are the goofy things that happen within our trauma, the way we can laugh about it. When you're talking to other Latinos, they're like, oh yeah, or other people you experience. Oh, when I do like audience, mixed audience, black people, Arab, everything, they're like, yeah, man, this is how they're treating us. We've all had to go through these kinds of things. But with white people, it's like we're not doing enough to hurt you.
Wow. Speaking of that, we're in election season right now. When Trump was in office, from 16 to 2020, one of the first thing he did was he did the travel ban. Um, and then of course he said he was going to reverse DACA. He was going to, basically make it very hard for people that were undocumented or from countries that he considered undesirable to come here. You know, are you scared of potentially another Trump presidency? Like what's the temperature that you're seeing out there? How are you feeling?
Um, I'm honestly really scared, and and I'm not just saying like, oh, I'm scared of what happened. No, I don't think people are paying attention at how much Georgia is, putting in, puppets. So if like one inconsistency is at any polling place, they can shut down the county's voting count. A lot more states have made it harder for people to vote, purging people from the Republicans cannot win fairly.
Mhm.
So they are cheating and doing everything possible. Elon Musk just showed that he can stoke civil war in the UK with misinformation and he loves Trump. there's a lot of, even if Kamala Harris wins, which I hope she does, I have my reservations on a lot of things, especially how she feels about the immigrant community and Gaza and all that stuff. But I feel like we can work with her, but I am terrified of what Republicans are gonna do, win or lose, honestly. I
Right.
think people are like, well, if Kamala wins and it'll be gravy on November 6th. Nah, man, November 6th till January 10th or 11th, whenever it is that Kamala's sworn in, that middle ground is a vacuum for misinformation. My mother told me, we were on vacation recently, like I went to fly to go see her because she can't fly, um, that my aunt, who, has the resources, has been saving money to get us all out. My aunt is doing honestly, I hate to be so dramatic, but a Schindler List type situation. Who is the most vulnerable? Who needs to
Right.
get out? How much money does she have? She
Right.
has the resources to get 10 people out. I mean, probably more, but this is very scary that like my aunt who works so hard is not like, how do I move two or three families again? The first time we did it in small bites, like, one goes first, the other one goes next. But in a time of crisis like this with mass deportation, I got family members we're a mixed status family all the way through. How do we survive this?
Right.
And a lot of us are thinking, go to Canada, or maybe some of us might go back to DR since maybe some things can do better. But we're looking at like, what do we do? But
Mhm.
we're very scared of a Trump presidency because it's definitely, and I personally on my end, I don't think I continue to work safely that I do under a Trump presidency. I don't feel like I could, and I think it'd be best for me to fight from the outside because it'll be too dangerous for me here.
I 100% agree with you as somebody who lives in a very red state. And I live on the border between Georgia. I live in South Carolina, but I live on the border between Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So we get news from all three locations and we see what's happening. And it's very scary to think that people are putting, the country, the safety and the safety of the country, they're putting their own political beliefs above the safety of the country. And it's just something that I see consistently. Um, but with that being said, I as well hope Kamala wins.
Yeah.
I've never once tried to, be like, oh, the better of two evils. I do think Kamala Harris has her own issues, but like you said, she'll be easier to work with than Donald Trump. I don't think there's any working with Donald Trump. So there's that.
No.
So, my question to you is like, where do you like, what are your hopes for the future as far as your own personal goals and like, where your TikTok and things like that. Where do you see all of that going?
I love when people go, what do you see the future is for my undocumented ass? And I always go to shut it down.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like I hope that we can figure out a system that's humane where people are able to move around and not be stuck in this draconian white supremacist system that keeps people in certain parts of the world just so they can be exploited in one way or another. You know what I mean? Because so really my dream is to the system have such a radical change that is like undocumented is a thing of the past. There is no more somebody undocumented. We're all human. That's my utopian, fantasy dream that I work every day to hope that's a reality. But um, I really have been reading this great book called All the White Friends I Couldn't Keep. And the book gave me something I didn't expect, which was hope. The guy really does lay out a great analysis of, listen, we got to fight. Don't rest on anything. Don't think that, no, keep putting pressure, keep coming to the street, keep finding coalitions. LULAC should team up with Black Lives Matter. We need to, do all this. You know, um, so that's where I'm at. I'm like, I'm gonna figure out a way to be more hopeful. Yesterday was the first day in over a year that I posted a segment on my TikTok called Breaking News, which is I make more fun of white people in a daily news the Daily Show type way.
Right.
And it was because I've been meditating and I've been reading and I've been taking time to heal my mind, and I thought of jokes for the first time in like a year. And that was like, and it hit so well, not because the video did well, because people felt like, damn, dude, damn right you're telling the white dude, and I'm laughing at it. And I'm like, yes, I gotta figure out a way to bring joy because if we keep being so angry, like they're gonna win. They hate to
Right,
see. That's why they want to keep. That's why like the more joyous I am up there, the more they were like, I want to fucking hurt this guy. It's like they're angry at our joy. They're
right,
angry at our joy, and we shouldn't let them take the joy away. That's what they want to take away.
right, right, right. You know, one thing that I saw recently is that there's this idea out there that undocumented immigrants are getting tens of thousands of dollars per month from the government. And you made a video where you kind of were like debunking that. And I appreciate it because I see it a lot. Like, I live in a predominantly white neighborhood, but I'm around a lot of black people, black Americans, and the misconception is that these undocumented people are getting $10,000 a month. And it's not true. But like, what are some like within that, like what are some things that misconceptions that people have about the undocumented community that you just want to like be like, listen, that's not true. I mean,
That
are you getting $10,000 a month from the government?
Man, not even from TikTok on my videos, and now you see how hard I'm working. Do you know what I mean? Like, nobody, man. I can show you my bank account across the board. You'd be like, brother, we should donate to you. Like, you know what I mean? Like maybe you should try to get from the government. Like, that's
Right.
how it be. No, and it's just, and first of all, biggest misconception is that we take from the government. No, no, we don't. There are programs that help out people like they're supposed to. If an undocumented person gets into a car accident or is about to give birth, there are services that allow them to, to go to the hospital and get that's like emergency services that we should all be able to because a lot of people from the US go down to Mexico to take advantage of their healthcare. So I'm just saying,
Mhm.
I think, also DR, they go for a lot of like, certain kind of surgeries. We're all helping each other out in the surgery
Thank you,
department.
thank you.
You know what I mean? We're all doing that. But
Right.
my biggest thing is, and I just want people to know, we try. Like, I'm not trying to like beg for people to say, like, we try to fix it. We seriously do. From when we were in our home country, my mom was like, hey, police officers, please take care of this man. Like, things are very terrible. And the cops were like, nah, we're paid off. This, that, you know what I mean? There's no safety, this. Fine, that's its own country problem. But we're talking about like, military interventions from the US, these kinds of things that have caused, a sort of system where people feel like they just can't get justice mixed in with misogyny and all that stuff.
Right.
So my mom, we came here, and when we came here on a 90 tourist visa, I don't think my mom maybe knew that she could apply for asylum under her situation. I don't know if, because, protected class changed variously or, how it may be or whatever. So, we tried to get our visa renewed. We tried to find various ways. My mom got married, you know what I mean? I went through various programs. I talked to Senator Bob Menendez, career RIP. You know what I mean? Like back in the day. You know what I mean? Like I talked to his office. Like I did so much, and every single person I know back in the home country are figuring out a way until it's too much that there's nothing. Then they have to make this decision. And once they're here, it's constantly finding. I used to work at a free immigration service organization, and I'm sorry, but I had to quit because the amount of calls I kept going, like hundreds a day, being like, please, is there anything you can do for me? I don't have money. I don't have this. I can't work, but they want me to pay this. What do I do? And I'm like, I can't. I like helping people out. Like, let's do a GoFundMe. I want to do a march. Let me help this. But like hearing people's hopelessness every day, even while I'm living my own, was a lot.
There's a lot. So, with that being said, we're wrapping things up now.
Yeah.
What is your message for lawmakers and with in regards to immigration? We have about 5 minutes left. What would you say to lawmakers now that to talk your shit, say
You
it.
know, I mean, I know they won't listen to this, but we all know that immigration laws have not changed because they don't like the people who's coming here. A quick, you're a history dude. I'm gonna try to do the best I can with this history lesson. You know, at first, when this country was first being stolen, there was absolutely no immigration system. Once an immigration system was sort of established, the U.S. Congress, because most of the immigrants were, from Western part of Europe, they automatically renewed the criteria to become a citizen like every 5 years without it being asked to do. There is documentation showing every 5 years, oh, have you been here and you pay your tax? Blah, blah. That's how so many white people were able to naturalize and become citizens because the government was like, yo, come on, we still in this land. We need more citizens. Da, da, da. You know what I mean? They were doing everything they could get more white people to come here. Once the eugenics movement happened first, where they started to be like, if you let certain people in from undesirable areas, then they're going to ruin the American fabric, which is why a lot of people from Eastern Europe start getting blocked. Then the Immigration Act of 1929 was the last time that the US government updated what is known as the registry, which is just a piece of paperwork that Congress can just update to a certain date, because that's what's arbitrary about immigration. It's like, oh, if you're here before this date. Reagan used that piece of legislation in 1986 to update the registry. That's why a lot of people were able to get naturalized because he updated the registry. He didn't give amnesty, he updated the registry. That's the language you should be doing. And what we're pushing now is for Congress to update the registry. Okay. If people have been here 10 years, if they're paying their taxes, there are criteria that you have to meet, there are gates that you have to pass. But once you do that, there's a pathway for you. You know what I mean? That would be the same for me. That would be the same for a lot of people. You know what I mean? It's just that this blockade that they have in place where now there's 11 million undocumented people is on purpose. And I can speak right now, it happened last night. Republicans blocked that parole in place that Biden passed that gives non-citizens married to U.S. citizens a pass. That was 500,000 people that were going to get a status that Republicans blocked. So you see, there's just so many easy ways to help this system move and work the way it should. But the point to keep people undocumented is the game.
Again, yeah. So Che, thank you so much for coming on, man. How can people find you? What do you have going on? Give us your schedule. We have about 2 minutes left. Give us your schedule. Tell us where we could find you, where we could pull up. Talk to us.
First of all, follow my TikTok and my Instagram, My Undocumented Ass. I will be bringing my podcast, My Undocumented Ass, back very soon. I want to start sharing more stories. And currently, I am trying to do a semi-autobiographical TV show about my life. If you go to supportourstory.com / soñador, without the ñ thing because it's Google and they hate, you know what I mean? So it's soñador. But I'm trying to raise $15,000 to do a pilot about an undocumented kid who wants to be a stand-up comedian. I already have a platform for it. I have an EDA Plus that I will go up. I just need the funds to be able to get with my writing team, write it and film it. So if you can go to supportourstory.com / soñador to find out more. But if you go on TikTok and Instagram, it's my pinned post, so you'll find out more.
Awesome. Well, we have an activist, a future actor, uh, Dominican, from Queens. Thank you so much
It's
for
funny you
coming.
said I started you like Dominican Senior has a million jobs. I added 3 jobs during this conversation.
See? Always working, siempre trabajando.
Mi amigo, un placer, un placer.
Thank you, man. It's my pleasure as well. And thank you for always, and you're always welcome on, man.
Thank you, man. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.